Okay, so it looks like we are live. This is the first live stream that I've done. I thought it'd be a cool idea to do a pregame live stream. So let's go ahead and do that. So far, I just want to talk about some game notes, some pregame stuff. Golden Tate is inactive. He has a hamstring injury, so he will not play. It looked like, according to Jordan right now, it looked like Golden Tate was supposed to play. It looked like he was headed towards playing tonight, but he will not. He is inactive. So I think Evan Ingram, I think you start him in your fantasy lineup if you could. I think he's going to be a big part of tonight's game, where they're going to try to make him a big part. Because if you really look at it, after Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton, you have C.J. Board. I don't know. I don't know. I don't trust the depth in the when it comes to the Giants wide receivers. So we'll see about that. Not having Golden Tate ready to go. Also, other game notes. There is a new rule this year. There's a new rule this year where 48 players can be active and dress for a game. So the Giants have added Chad Slade and Sean Chandler from the practice squad. They have been elevated to play. So there'll be extra guys ready to go for the Giants tonight. As I talked about in my recent video, my podcast, I talked about the Steelers front seven. So this is going to be, I think this might be the toughest matchup for the Giants all season when it comes to their offensive line. So I would say be patient with the Giants offensive line tonight. They may struggle. You got a rookie left tackle. Cam Fleming's your right tackle. You got Nick Gates starting at center. That will be his first opportunity starting at center. So I would say be patient. This is a really, really good Pittsburgh Steelers defense, arguably the best in the NFL coming into this season. Last year, they were first in pressure percentage, and they were second in run defense EPA. So the Pittsburgh Steelers can stop the run, and they can rush the passer very well. Big names all over that front seven, from TJ Watt. You got Bud Dupree, Stephon Tuitt, Cameron Hayward. A lot of good players. So, again, there may be some struggles. Andrew Thomas may struggle. Nick Gates may struggle. Cam Fleming may struggle. Will Hernandez. Kevin Zeitler. It's a tough matchup. So I would say be patient. Obviously, Golden Tate being out, that definitely hurts. Their wide receiving unit. This is yet another game, another opportunity where Golden Tate, Evan Ingram, Saquon Barkley, Sterling Shepard, and Darius Slayton, none of those guys have played all at once with Daniel Jones. Yet again, the Giants miss out on an opportunity to get all those guys. Like I said, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate, Darius Slayton, and Saquon Barkley, all 5 of those guys have yet to play in one single game with Daniel Jones. It's unfortunate. So, again, Golden Tate is out. He will not be playing. We got some comments. Thanks for those who have tuned in for the first live stream here. Obviously, a little bit different from the videos I've done in the past. I do a lot of editing, this and that, trying to give you graphics. But this, we're just gonna talk some Giants football, some pregame stuff here. So, like I said, Golden Tate inactive with the hamstring. Sean Chandler, Chad Slade will be elevated from the practice squad. Those guys, again, new league rule. You can have 48 guys dressed instead of 46. So those guys will be on the. They will be dressed for tonight's game. So, like I said, we talked about the offensive line matchup. Again, for people who are kind of tuning in, I know there's people coming in left and right. We got some comments here. Appreciate the nice comments here. Tough matchup for the Giants offensive line. So they may struggle. And look, in general, I'm not going to say, the Giants going to lose. I don't want to sound like I'm a hater here, because I know that's what people probably say. They'll be like, you think the Giants going to lose? You're hating. Yeah, I already got some interesting responses for that. But no, look, they're a young team. I talked about this on my podcast, that's available on YouTube and on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and most other platforms. I talked about this. New head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. So you got new head coach, offensive coordinator, and defensive coordinator. All your guys, all new guys there, playing in their first game with no preseason, against a really good Pittsburgh Steelers defense, veteran head coach, veteran quarterback. It's look, the Giants, obviously this is a tough matchup for them. If you look at it on paper, they probably should lose. Does that mean they will lose? We'll see. Obviously, they have to play the game. Pittsburgh Steelers could be rusty. We don't know. So that's why they play the games. I'm just saying on paper, whatever the Giants can take away from this that is positive, I would say take that, because it's not a friendly matchup week one for a new regime, a young quarterback in a new system, a young offensive line, rookie left tackle, Nick Gates playing center, new right tackle, some new pieces that are starters on the Giants offensive line. So be patient. That's all I'm going to say. With that, interesting, Art Stapleton mentioned that Logan Ryan and Darnay Holmes could actually see as many snaps against Juju Smith-Schuster as James Bradbury. Last year, Juju Smith-Schuster played 58% of his snaps in the slot. So you might see Darnay Holmes, Logan Ryan against one of the better receivers in the league. I'm not going to say he's one of the best, but one of the better. I would say top 15, top 20 wide receiver. In terms of fantasy football, people love him, especially when Big Ben's there. People love Juju Smith-Schuster in fantasy football, but he's one of the better wide receivers in the league. So Darnay Holmes, who we obviously talked about many, many times, did a video on this many times, but specifically one video on how they may have found something here. The Giants may have found something with Darnay Holmes, rookie fourth-round pick. He played pretty nice in the scrimmage games that he got some opportunities to play in. He played pretty well. There was one practice where he intercepted Daniel Jones on a pass intended for Golden Tate. So Golden Tate, more of a shifty slot receiver, Juju Smith kind of wideout, yards after catch kind of guy, short passes, turning them into long passes kind of guy. Performed well against him, so could see that tonight with Juju Smith-Schuster. So basically, that's the deal, right? So no Golden Tate. Sean Chandler, Chad Slade elevated from the practice squad. Again, new league rule. You can have 48 players dress. Tough matchup for the Giants offensive line. Be patient. Any positives that can be taken from the game when it comes to the offensive line, take them, because this might be the toughest matchup they play all year. Like I said, Pittsburgh Steelers defense last year, first in pressure percentage, second in the league in run defense EPA. So really good against rushing the passer, and really good against the run. It's a tough matchup. It's a very, very tough matchup for the Giants, and in general, the Steelers defense, even their secondary. Last year, they were first in turnover percentage, fewest yards per play, fourth in pass defense EPA. It's a really, really good unit. So new offense for Daniel Jones, Jason Garrett's Air Coryell style of offense. It's not an easy matchup. Not an easy matchup. So if they do play well, if the Giants offense plays well, that's a lot to take. That's a really big, I'm trying to find the word here. Positive. Really big positive for a young quarterback in a new system. So we'll see. We'll see when it comes to the Giants offense. Now, when we look at their defense, last year, I've mentioned this so many times. I repeat myself. New people watching, new subscribers every day. I also want to say thank you. We continue to add more subscribers, well over 1,100. So thank you to those who have subscribed, continuing to try to put out as much content as possible. I remember doing this. I started this out, did a lot of writing. I started my website in 2016. But now onto more YouTubing, more into this, because I think this is more fun, really. I think it is. It's more interesting, and you guys have been great. YouTube has been awesome. So let's get back to the Giants. 27th in pass defense EPA last year. They also 29th in turnover percentage. The problem, not only with not creating turnovers, but their offense in turnover percentage, third worst. So they were turning the football over a lot. I believe led the league in lost fumbles last year, the Giants, and they didn't create turnovers on defense. So when we look at Corey Ballentine, who starts opposite James Bradbury, James Washington is a player to keep an eye out for, because over the course of his career, almost 16 yards per reception. He's a big play down the field kind of wide receiver. Corey Ballentine, I don't know if he'll be matched up on him. We'll see how that goes. But that's something to watch. Because Corey Ballentine, he allowed 14.6 yards per completion last year. So he struggled. We'll see what if he has some improvement in him this year. Struggled in camp. So that's an interesting matchup to watch, to say the least. Let's look at some comments here. Let's see if we got any questions. Evan Ingram, yes. So Evan Ingram, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I think this could be a big game for Evan Ingram, at least targets-wise. I'm not saying he's going to go off for 150 yards here, but targets-wise, yeah. No Golden Tate. Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton are your two kind of bona fide receivers that you can trust, but C.J. Board, Damian Ratley, can't really trust them too much. They don't really have that much experience or that much productivity to really just trust. That's one thing I talked about. I said, I had no problem with Dave Gettleman's draft in terms of targeting offensive linemen, at least the top 5 rounds, and then at the end targeting a lot of linebackers, but they didn't use a draft pick on a wide receiver. Not that Benjamin Victor can't be a player at some point, or looks like Alex Bachman impressed during camp. He's on the practice squad. David Sills hurt. It's not that any of the young receivers can't step up off the practice squad, which I think they're going to get opportunities this year. I've also stated that. But this was a good draft when it comes to this past draft was a good draft when it comes to wide receivers. So they had an opportunity to potentially take a game-changing wide receiver, a starting caliber wide receiver, and they passed. And I thought that was questionable in a pass-happy league, especially big play threat. Aside from Darius Slayton in this Jason Garrett offense, you need a big play threat. And if Darius Slayton gets hurt, then what do you have? I mean, Damian Ratley has showed that in his early career. I believe 16.7 yards per reception last year. He's showed the potential, but very limited sample size. I think he caught 12 passes last year. So, I don't know. I would have drafted a wide receiver. It's an interesting wide receiving unit. I think you'll see practice squad guys eventually come up and make an impact. Not that they'll be great, but they'll see snaps. The first name, what's my first name? Vincent Rapisardi. That's me. So that's a good question. I should probably state that a couple times. I mean, I'm new to this. This is the first live stream I've done. So Vincent Rapisardi, that's my name. Let's see if we got any other interesting comments or questions. Worried about stupid errors at safety. We'll see. Julian Love, I thought he played fairly well last year. Passer rating was around 80. Jabril Peppers' passer rating was around 80 as well. Apparently, you could see him, Jabril Peppers, a little bit at linebacker, playing closer to line of scrimmage in the box. That's what Art Stapleton said in certain situations. So we'll see about that. Let's see if we have any other questions. Who do you think leads the Giants in receiving yards? Slayton and Shepard are obviously the top guys at this moment. Evan Ingram will definitely see targets. I can tell you that. Not that, again, not saying he's going to have a big game. He may not, but he'll definitely see targets in this game. Joe Judge, obviously, yes, he definitely an interesting. Will be interesting to see Joe Judge in his first game, how he manages that. And look, the thing is that's also interesting is, Ben McAdoo, Pat Shurmur, offensive coordinators who were head coaches. Joe Judge can really focus in on the actual management of the game, the strategic aspect of the game, time management, and all those other things that go along with it. Specifically being able to manage his players and kind of overseeing everything, instead of Ben McAdoo worrying about calling plays or Pat Shurmur calling plays or whatever it might be. And maybe their focus isn't there. I remember years ago, Jason Garrett, his play calling duties were taken away because they didn't feel like his focus was, completely on the entire game. And I think that's kind of an interesting aspect of having Joe Judge being more of an old school coach, not just old school, but a coach who's overseeing the entire operation instead of just calling plays and also having to be the head coach. So I think that actually could be an advantage for the Giants. An answer for Deontay Johnson, we'll see about that too. Corey Ballentine, James Bradbury, Isaac Yiadom. I mean, look, I think Corey Ballentine's gonna have a short leash. It's not like, he won the Giants job. 100% it was his job. He earned it and he won it. Isaac Yiadom could see a decent amount of snaps too. I wouldn't be surprised. And who knows what else they have planned out there. Maybe they want to give Darnay Holmes a couple snaps or Logan Ryan a couple snaps. I know those guys are more slot corners. Logan Ryan looks like he can play some safety. But maybe they do that. I don't know. It depends, right? It's so easy to, on paper, write down, okay, this is what they should do. But then when the game happens and things happen, you got to adjust on the fly, and that's what good teams do, right? I mean, that's what Bill Belichick has really made his name on. It's been adjusting and evolving over the course of a game and over the course of years. So the Giants will have to do that tonight. They will have to evolve on the fly because their cornerback situation on the outside, opposite James Bradbury. James Bradbury is a very good corner, but opposite him, it's shaky. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, it's not very good. So we'll see. They're going to have to judge on the fly. No pun intended. Let's see if we have any other questions, any other interesting comments. Again, thanks for those who have tuned in. Benjamin Victor, wish he was playing. Look, the Giants have the opportunity to do that because, like I said, you can elevate some players off the practice squad. You can have 48 active on game day, 48 dressed on game day instead of 46. So they could have chose that. It's interesting that they didn't. I'm actually kind of surprised. I'm sure they had to have some. They had to have some inclination or expectation that Golden Tate wasn't going to play. So it's interesting that they chose to elevate Sean Chandler and Chad Slade and not elevate a wide receiver. Pretty interesting move by the Giants there. So something definitely maybe after the game Joe Judge is asked about, especially if they don't perform and if they're not throwing the ball well and if their wide receivers struggle. So let's see if we have any other questions. So I'm going to make this a fairly quick pregame live show. I think this has been pretty fun. I think it's pretty cool. Again, thank you to those who have tuned in. This is pretty fun. Like I said, I really do. I've never done this. I've never done a live stream. I used to do Periscopes on Twitter a lot. But this is, I think this is pretty cool because I think you can really build on the YouTube platform. I really feel like more people can tune in, maybe subscribe, watch, they see video, and they join in. And they join in on our community here because that's what we're trying to build here. Who will take Golden Tate's spot? I mean, Sterling Shepard is more of a slot receiver anyway. I think what you'll see is more Damian Ratley and Darius Slayton on the outside. Damian Ratley and Darius Slayton, those guys are home run threats. Those guys are deep ball threats. I think Darius Slayton averaged like 15.4 yards per reception. Remember, yards before catch. That's an important stat that really tells you what kind of a receiver, what kind of player a receiver truly is. Because if they have a low yards before catch, that means they're catching a lot of short passes. That means they're more slot wide receivers. Their average depth of target is lower. If they have a high yards before catch, that means they're catching the football down the field. That means they're more of a big play wide receiver, a perimeter wide receiver for the most part. So thank you for the positive comments. Appreciate that. So I think that's what you'll kind of see. Maybe I think you'll see a lot of Damian Ratley, who the Giants claimed off of waivers, who is a former Cleveland Brown they brought on to their roster. Yeah, Golden Tate not playing again. Golden Tate, beat that. Golden Tate not playing, hamstring injury. Weird. I really do think it's weird. I don't understand how the Giants, they brought up Chad Slade and Sean Chandler from the practice squad when they had a ton of wide receivers in the practice squad that they could have elevated to have some extra depth at wide receiver for this game. It's just interesting. So we'll see. Like I said, I think that's a question that should be asked after the game on their strategy there. So we'll see how that goes. Let me just quickly look and see if there are any other updates before I kind of conclude on this live stream. So inactives. So the inactives have come out for the Giants. Golden Tate, obviously, T.J. Brunson, Cam Brown, Tate Crowder, Shane Lemieux, Jackson Barton, and R.J. McIntosh. Not too many surprises here, but some of their young linebackers, some of their rookie linebackers will not be active. Like I said, I'll repeat this. Golden Tate, obviously, we've talked about that. He's inactive. T.J. Brunson, Cam Brown, Tate Crowder, all inactive. Linebackers, they will not be playing. They're inactive. Shane Lemieux, Jackson Barton, who they had claimed off waivers, and R.J. McIntosh, inactive for the Giants. So just a quick update on that. See if there's any other updates. And that seems to be it. That's interesting too. It's mentioned that 4 of their draft picks inactive for tonight's game, and look, it's week 1. And that's why I've stated I stated it on Twitter. I believe I did a video on it, but with Andrew Thomas, I really thought the Giants, at least week 1, week 2, maybe a couple weeks in, 3 weeks, I wouldn't have started Andrew Thomas at left tackle. I know that's a very controversial take because people want to see Andrew Thomas play, right? 4th overall pick. A lot of people think he's ready to go. I just think that no preseason games, as you've seen, 4 draft picks inactive. And look, most of them they're later round picks, but no preseason games at a tough position against a very, very tough opponent in the Pittsburgh Steelers, as I've mentioned many times. Let's see, we got another question. A passing game or running game, again, that's kind of... I think what the Steelers are going to do is they're going to try to go all in on stopping Saquon Barkley, especially with Golden Tate being out. I think they have confidence in their secondary to kind of... and with still a young quarterback in Daniel Jones, who... Look, Daniel Jones showed promise, and I think he can definitely be a franchise quarterback. As we know, things change very quickly in the league, right? Baker Mayfield had a great rookie year, and then last year he struggled, and now all of a sudden people are questioning if he's the guy. I'm not saying that will happen with Daniel Jones, but still a young quarterback who had fumbling issues. So I think the Steelers would rather take their chances with stopping the run and going all in on Saquon Barkley, and then just kind of trusting their secondary to do their job whenever needed against Daniel Jones, and maybe, I don't know, blitzing a lot. I don't know. It depends on what they want to do here. It's tough. It's really tough because it's a new offense. It's a new offense with Jason Garrett. So it's kind of tough for the Steelers to truly prepare. But what I would say is they really kind of hone in on stopping Saquon Barkley and then just trusting their secondary and their defense whenever need be when Daniel Jones goes back to pass. Because Saquon Barkley is obviously one of the most talented players in the NFL, one of the best running backs in the NFL. So if you're the Steelers, you want to make sure that you stop him and that he doesn't make plays. Because the thing is, if Saquon Barkley is out there making plays, that obviously puts Daniel Jones in very good situations. If Saquon Barkley is averaging, let's say, 5.5 plus yards per carry, then Daniel Jones can pass it when he wants to. Play action is going to most likely work better. And read option plays too. I think RPO style plays. Look, I know I've tweeted about this in terms of the value of RPO plays. I can't exactly remember the average yards per play, but in terms of running the football, the average yards per attempt on RPO plays for quarterbacks and running backs is extremely high. I've said this. I think the Giants should run RPO as often as possible. You're seeing that with the Baltimore Ravens and how successful that is, because just think about it. When you run an RPO play, you essentially pause the defense. It's tough to truly rush the passer or truly stop the run because you can judge what you want to do, right? You make the decision there. It's that option. It's the option of running or passing it. So you give yourself the option of running or passing it. So it makes it much more difficult to stop. And the numbers prove it in terms of yards per attempt, a lot higher than just an average handoff, right? If you're in the shotgun and you just hand it off, or you're under center and it's an I formation and you hand it off, whatever it might be, a typical run play. RPO is just proven that the yards per attempt is much higher, and that's something I could definitely do another video on. I believe that I've done a video on it before. Follow me on Twitter. I talk about that kind of stuff. And the underrated aspect of Daniel Jones in terms of yards per attempt, in terms of rushing EPA, he was, I believe, 6th among quarterbacks in rushing EPA last year. Daniel Jones is a very good running quarterback, sneaky good. I know that there aren't a lot of designed run plays for him, but a guy that can drop back, and if he gets pressured and escapes the pocket, he can rush for a first down easily. And he can. I know I did a video on that. If you want to check out that in terms of Daniel Jones, a couple of plays that I picked out, and his ability to escape some trouble and rush for a first down on I believe one of them was a 3rd down against the Redskins last year. It was like third and 10 plus, and he used his legs to get a first down. And those are game changers, right? You keep your offense on the field. You keep their defense on the field. You keep your defense off the field. You move the chains. You change your field position is obviously improved. In that situation specifically, the play I'm talking about, they were, I think, around midfield. So if he took a sack or if it was an incomplete pass, I don't even think they would have had a field goal opportunity. Or if it was, it would have been 50-plus yards. So having a mobile quarterback in today's game, in terms of EPA too, I mean, it brings so much value. So that's an underrated aspect of Daniel Jones, and we'll see if that carries over this year and how many RPO-style plays they have for him. And the Giants are in the Wildcat, one of the scrimmage games. Keep an eye out for that. I'm not saying they're going to use it, but keep an eye out for it. Maybe they use it. Maybe it was just something they were having fun with in a scrimmage. Obviously, they ran a couple of fake punts as well. Riley Dixon threw it. Joe Judge, special teams guy. You never know. RPO play action is a huge weapon with Saquon. Saquon, it is. Look, Saquon's a playmaker. He's a playmaker. Give him the football in any way possible. If you want to put him in the slot, if you want to put him out wide, if you want to put him in the backfield, what do you want to do? You want to make him run the Wildcat. Give him the football as often as possible. That's why he was drafted second overall. He's not just a prototypical running back, or else he would have been drafted in the 5th round or the 6th round. He was drafted second overall because when he has the ball in his hands, he's a special player. And he's caught a ton of passes earlier on in his career, but the point is to increase his average depth of target. So, and that's something I had seen Jordan Renan talk about, is that expect that to happen. Expect Saquon Barkley to catch passes further downfield instead of just, a screen, just a screen pass or something like that. Put him in the slot, get him downfield a little bit more, and get the ball in his hands. Because, there's a reason he's a running back, right? He's talented with the football. Give him the football further down the field. And that's another interesting point, because with Golden Tate not playing today, maybe Saquon Barkley is used more in the pass game. Maybe he's split out wide. Maybe he's put in the slot more. Think about this as well. I'm trying to think off the top of my head the percentage, but I know in 2018, Evan Ingram's slot percentage, right, the amount of snaps he had in the slot was his highest of his career with the Giants. And that was his most productive year, especially in terms of separation, in terms of yards after catch, above expectation, I believe it was. He was incredibly productive in 2018. That was his best season. So maybe they use him more in the slot. They obviously have Caden Smith, who proved to be a good receiving tight end. Levine Toilialo, probably pronouncing that wrong. It's a tough name. Sorry. But they have some, and he's more of a blocking tight end, so you don't expect him to catch many passes. But Caden Smith proved to be a good receiving tight end last year. So maybe with Golden Tate hurt, you see more snaps for Evan Ingram in the slot. That would be interesting. And I think that's something they should do, more in the slot and on the perimeter. I've said this many, 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 many times on Twitter. I'm on YouTube. I'm on every place. Every place I've ever talked about Giants football, I said Evan Ingram's a wide receiver. Not that he can't play tight end in certain situations. He can't block a little bit here and there, but he's a wide receiver. That's something that John Gruden, the day he was drafted, said Evan Ingram, he's a wide receiver. He's a wide receiver playing tight end. Measurables-wise, he's literally like the smallest tight end in the NFL. Tolilo, I think. Levine Tolilo. I think that's how it's pronounced. I apologize for that. Let's see if we got anything else. Ooh, Steelers 31, Giants 10. By the way, my prediction for the game, I do think the Steelers will win it by at least 10 points. I'm going to say 34-20. That was my prediction on the podcast. I think when you watch this game, just look for positives from the offensive line specifically, because the Giants have invested a lot in the offensive line. That's where the Giants want to see the most improvement. Obviously, the quarterback too, but they want to see the most improvement in the offensive line. If Andrew Thomas holds his own and isn't an issue, right, against this defense, that is a big, big plus for the Giants moving forward. It is. And look, expanded NFL playoff too. So, even if you lose a game, even if you lose the first 2 games, it's, continue to try and make strides as a young team. The Giants are a developing team. They're not ready to win a championship. Maybe they could compete for the last playoff spot. I wouldn't leave that out, especially with this COVID season. Who knows, right? The NFL has done very well in terms of testing and players not being positive, but who knows? Who knows who might be available and who might not on opposing teams or even on the Giants moving forward. Let's see what else. Let's see if we got other questions or comments. Praying that the secondary doesn't embarrass themselves. I don't think the secondary will be that bad. The question mark is Corey Ballentine, James Bradbury. You can trust him. I think Jabril Peppers, you can trust him. Julian Love, you can trust him. Logan Ryan's a veteran corner. Darnay Holmes has performed fairly well, and he performed well in camp, in scrimmage games. So I don't think they'll be embarrassing. Remember, last year they were 27th in pass defense EPA. They were embarrassing. And they were targeted the 18th most when it came to wide receivers, right? Opposing teams targeted the Giants. Opposing teams' wide receivers, the Giants were 18th in targets against wide receivers. I'm sorry if I'm confusing people, but opposing wide receivers had the 18th most targets in the NFL, but top 3 in terms of touchdowns allowed and yards allowed. So, and that, look, rookie DeAndre Baker last year, Janoris Jenkins obviously was another starter, but then he got waived, and then the Giants just mix in a bunch of young corners, a bunch of young secondary players in general. And then Antoine Bethea was obviously terrible. Sam Beal last year. Julian Love was a rookie, but he performed fairly well. Just trying to think off the top of my head some players. Obviously Corey Ballentine, but more experience with this Giants secondary. I don't expect them to be embarrassing. I think that they can be a middle of the road secondary. I think that's fair to say, with the experience that they have, and expect that Jabril Peppers or Julian Love to take the next step as a young player who they both performed fairly well last year. I think James Bradbury is as close to a lockdown corner as you're going to get. I think the advanced metrics back that up. He performed very well last year. He's not a big name corner, but the numbers don't lie. He's a good player. So it really all comes down to Corey Ballentine, Isaac Yiadom, what they do on the perimeter, on the other side. They're going to have to figure out that situation. In a pass-happy league, you got to be good at corner. You just have to be. Top 5 teams in pass defense EPA last year were 57 and 23. Bottom 16 teams, only 4 made the playoffs. And I know you're probably saying, well, top 5 team in any category is going to be good. Well, rush defense EPA, the top 5 teams in rush defense EPA were 35 and 45. So they were 10 games under 500. So you got to be good against the pass in today's NFL. You have to be. So we'll see Corey Ballentine, Isaac Yiadom, what they do on the outside. So that's all I got. This was great. This was a great live stream. Thank you for everyone that tuned in. Follow me on Twitter at Vince Rapasardi. I'll be tweeting the entire game. Hope you can subscribe and continue our community that we got here, our unbiased community, New York Giants football here. Eventually we'll branch out to other topics, but this specific channel will always be about the New York Giants, because I know somebody mentioned that. They said, no, we got to keep this Giants related, this channel. We will. This channel will specifically be Giants related, but I may have another channel or two that I add on while also doing this. So again, my final prediction here, I think Steelers win by at least 10. They're a good team. They're a really good team. Look out for the Giants' offensive line. I think if they are even average, I think that's great news, because this Steelers defense is really good. Daniel Jones, new system. Evan Ingram is a guy definitely going to see some targets. So that's all I got. Vincent Rapasardi, BigBlueUnbiased.com. Thank you for tuning in, and maybe I might do a live stream after the game. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'll probably just upload a video maybe after the game or tomorrow morning. So thanks again for tuning in.